know it's all in redirection. I see the blessings right beside me. The chances of quitting are likely. I do it like I'm in my Nikes. Don't make excuses, they never excite me. Boxes, boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it, stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted, exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. No, you cannot stop it.
Good morning, Knicks universe. Welcome back to another episode of the Knicks Morning Brew on this Monday, April 8th. Like always, I'm your guy Hector, hanging out with my companions this morning. I got my guy Eddie Presti, and I got my brother who I've been missing, my guy Phil, all caps. And even though Phil is back, I do apologize that Eddie is still here. Sorry about everybody in the chat that's disappointed. But Phil, how you doing? Speak to the people.
Man, I'm good, bro. Like today's one of those days where, you know, we got a victory that felt like a victory. You know, there's some games that we've won and it's been like, oh, you know, that's cool. We should have won that, or, you know, whatever. We didn't see what we wanted to see. But last night was one of those things where I felt like the New York Knicks silenced the haters within the New York Knicks fan base, like silenced a lot of haters within the New York Knicks fan base and outside of the New York Knicks fan base. And it was just a good win. And so we got to lock in this morning. We're going to have our guy Michael Scotto on in a little bit, which I'm looking forward to as well. The chat is already booming. Eddie, you know, as grumpy as he is, it's always good to see Eddie up here. Like, it's funny because I feel like you both are dressing the same now. So I feel like I have...
I wonder where he got that fucking idea. Where to dress.
He took your
he
jacket.
lost some weight. All of a sudden, he's wearing some fucking suit.
He is the AI version of us two. He's like, all right, give me a Phil all-cap hat. Give me an Eddie jacket. And let's see what we got. And boom, here he is. It's beautiful.
Phil, I don't know what you're talking about. You're acting like Alex has texted you complaining about my wardrobe over the past few weeks. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. But no, shout out to my guy Eddie Presti. Shout out to the chat. Like always, we got a great episode. Like Phil said, we got an amazing guest, Michael Scotto. I'm gonna just do a little bit of roll call, and I'll throw it over to Eddie Presti to let us know how he felt this morning. Our guy On Dios is in the building. Salute to you. Q Sean is in the building. My guy, how you doing? Our friend Wiz BK to LA is in the building as well. John Petit is in the building. Mr. 305 Raiders in the building. Salute to you. My guy Jacob Petruzzi says Eddie really is generous for letting Heck talk his shit again this morning. What you guys got to understand, I messaged Eddie in the middle of the night. I'll send him a video with a middle finger, and he'll respond to me with an SMD. Thank you so much for this video. That's our relationship. I love my guy Eddie Presti. Our friend CT Pittman is in the building. Nostalgic Nick is in the building as well. Eric Gonzalez, Chris N from Yankee Pod is in the building. Salute, salute, salute. 3 capital S's. We got over 80 people rocking with us. So smack that like button. Eddie Presti, let the people know how you feel.
Okay. So after the first half last night, I was like, this team is garbage. They're terrible. We can't beat a good team. We're finished. We're cooked. And then in the second half, it was almost like a mini miracle took place. The Knicks basically shot, I think in the third quarter, they shot close to 75% in that quarter. In the second half, overall, they were 10 of 15 from the three. That's 67%. Their defense was amazing in the second half. They got stop after stop. Giannis couldn't get going. Dante DiVincenzo was out of his mind last night. He had 12 clutch points. All right, he had all 12 of his threes, I think with 5 minutes or less. Maybe the one of them might have been with 6 minutes or something like that. But for the most part, all his points in that fourth quarter came in the clutch. He basically buried the Bucks. And shout out to iHeart. He played out of his mind. He was excellent last night. And shout out to Bojan. He was, very big in that fourth quarter. I think he had 7 points. So with those three playing that way, I can only say one thing. Shout out to the Whites, baby. Shout out to the Whites.
You can't do that with iHeart anymore. You can't do that with Hartenstein, okay?
He's half white. I'm allowed to say shout out to the whites with IR.
Okay.
I don't care what anybody says. So shout out to the whites, baby.
I'm sorry. Listen, Phil, the meeting we had with HR department, we're gonna have to have it again with HR and Eddie. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like just how you guys approach things. I feel like I have the angel of positivity and the angel of negativity both on my shoulder. Just like
Phil, you can't tell we missed you, Phil. We need you to help us guide this ship. This ship has been off sail ever since you took your hiatus. Go ahead, Phil.
No, it's funny because Eddie is one of those guys where his like excitement goes with the wind, like where the game is taking him, and he's like, I hate this team, trade everybody, and then at the end he's like, oh my goodness, give everyone an extension. It's like it's hilarious.
You're not wrong.
Eddie is one of those guys where he fights with himself like in the middle of a game. Like it reminds me of that friggin' Liar Liar episode where Jim Carrey's in the bathroom and he's like, what are you doing? I'm kicking my that's Eddie, like as he's watching a Knicks game. But what I thought was beautiful about yesterday is
Phil is frozen, or am I frozen? I think I'm frozen. I think Phil's frozen right now. So we got our guest Michael Scotto. He just came backstage. I got Phil, looks like a fish out of water right now, stuck in the middle. He just frozen. So I'm gonna bring my guy Michael Scotto to this. Oh, is Phil back?
He's back.
All right, Phil, we got Scotto backstage. There you go. He just got back here.
Awesome. So we could talk about what I was going to talk about a little bit later. Let's go straight into bringing up Scotto. Let's respect his time. So if you guys don't know who Michael Scotto is, you're living under a freaking rock, and I suggest you go follow him now. Host of Hoops Hype podcast. He covers everybody within the NBA, but a lot of, the Knicks and the Nets. And I want to give him a shout out because we were in a space together. So he was actually like supporting in the spaces. A lot of his support started, but before we did our watch party, he showed up to one of the spaces.
Oh God, he's frozen again.
It's all good, but no, I'll bring up Scotto right now. Again, like Phil said, amazing NBA insider, Michael Scotto. Scotto, how you doing, brother? Good morning. Sorry about the technical difficulties in 2024. Right? What can you do?
It's all good. Good morning, guys. You know what? I forgot my cup of coffee. I was going to put right here for your show for the morning brew, but we're up and at it. Happy to join you guys. And yeah, like Phil was saying, I heard you guys in the spaces and stuff, and at the watch party at Blarney's for Tony, and was happy to join that. I'm sorry I missed you guys. You guys were there early. I got there later towards the end after post game and stuff, but happy to join you guys and talk some Knicks for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Scotto, real quick, just for the people that don't know, I know Phil was giving a little segue into what you do. Let the people to chat know where they can find you, where your podcast, where are you located when it comes to the stuff that you do. Go ahead, brother.
Sure thing. So if you don't know, senior NBA insider for hoopshype.com and host of the Hoops Hype podcast. I'm going to be doing a lot more podcasts coming up with some lottery teams, kind of what's next for them. So looking forward to that. For the Knicks fans, you don't have to worry about that. Hopefully for them, they're going to have a little run in the playoffs here if they can get healthy with OG Anunoby back. Obviously, Julius is a different story, but we'll get to that. And you can find me on Twitter, mostly at Mike A. Scotto. Pretty much where I put everything out right away, whether it's a story like for Knicks fans. Most recently, I did talk to Isaiah Hartenstein about his free agency and his future and what he's learned from Tom Thibodeau and a bunch of other stuff from Nikola Jokic as well. So certainly, I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But that's the latest stuff from me on my end, fellas.
Yeah, let's get right into the iHeart conversation because my producer Celso brought up the graphic. When it comes to Isaiah Hartenstein, he is having a tremendous year, and he's having it in the right spot right before he's about to hit free agency. With the absence of Mitchell Robinson for a big portion of this season, and iHeart stepping up and becoming a starter for the first time, honestly, in his whole career. What is your expectation when it comes to his contract extension, and what is the dollar figures that you've been hearing out there?
Yeah, I mean, look, for a lot of the executives I talked to, and again, these are all projections because, there's no tampering, right? So with Isaiah Hartenstein, I mean, right now, an early, I would say, like kind of cautious estimate is $13 million, which is roughly around the non-taxpayer mid-level. But I could certainly see him getting more than that from a team with cap space, potentially, 15 million or so. But it's all going to depend on the market in terms of you've got Nick Claxton, who's an unrestricted free agent. You've got Jonas Valanciunas, and you've got some other guys as well. So it depends where teams feel he's in the pecking order. But he's certainly gotten himself, in the eyes of executives, a pay grade coming up here. And I think it's just a question of whether it's 13 million or more going up, at least from talking to executives from an early projection standpoint. Of course, if he has a big playoffs, that could bump it up. Teams always like guys that can perform well on the biggest stages. We saw that previously with Jaylen Brunson, who at the time a lot of people thought was overpaid. And since he has proven to be underpaid in a sense, he's played so well. But Isaiah did say that he would love to stay here with the Knicks. They can bring him back, certainly. I just think it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of maneuver that and looking ahead, whether they keep, let's say, Bojan Bogdanovic. Do you do maybe a trade with him? Do you let Precious Achiuwa walk? These are all types of decisions they're going to have to make. But certainly Isaiah has put himself in a conversation where he's an important piece for the Knicks. Even if you have Mitchell Robinson next season coming back healthy, he's shown to be a more than capable player and a starter. So they've got to recalibrate that a little bit. And then, of course, they got to keep one of their own guys who's going to be one of the top free agents in the entire NBA, and that's OG Anunoby.
Yeah. Anytime I hear the New York Knicks and a center performing well in the postseason and them getting a payday, I always remember Jerome James. I just always get nightmares and PTSD to Jerome. You already know where I was going, Scotto, with that one. Go ahead, Eddie.
It's different because we have Isaiah here. He's a proven commodity. I'll ask you this, Mike. You think it's 60 million, 4 years, 60 million, or do you think it could go up to that max that we could offer, which would be 472? Is it somewhere in between there, or is it a lot depending on the playoffs? Is it kind of all over the place? Where do you see him at? I would say 460 would probably get it done, but if he has a good playoffs, maybe that gets bumped up.
I pretty much agree with your assessment. I think right now you're in the 13 to 15 million range a year. A good playoff run, could it push it to 18? Sure, it's certainly possible. You got to look at the thing is two things. One, what teams that have cap space projected right now could use him? There's one team I'm debating, but I'm going to save it for a little more investigating because I don't want to jump the gun on that.
Okay, see?
May or may not be. And I mean, look, certainly a lot of teams around the league are wondering if OKC is going to go for a center. I know they're playing Chet there a little bit, but at least in the eyes of other executives around the league, this is not from the Thunder, but from other executives, they're wondering if that's kind of the direction they would go. And not just Isaiah, if it's another type of center as well. So just to kind of take some of the load off of Chet in terms of dealing with some bigger guys. So we'll see. But I mean, I think, Eddie, I do think your evaluation is pretty spot on. Like if he plays well in the playoffs, you're looking at that 472.
Yeah, and it is a good problem to have at the end of the day when it comes down to it, because Isaiah Hartenstein, he is playing himself into a contract that he rightfully deserves. He has stepped up tremendously again in the absence of Mitchell Robinson. Our friend Macri put it out there. This is a quote from iHeart. Tibbs helped me out a lot, especially on the defensive end. I was good with the Clippers defensively, but Tibbs really helped me with that. And it probably took me to another step. More great stuff. This is from our guy. This is from Michael Scotto's article from my guy Macri out there on Twitter. But no, the quote from iHeart talking about the influence that Tom Thibodeau has had and the influence from teammates like OG Anunoby in a short sample size. You see it that it gets lost in translation with a lot of teams. They always say we're trying to find the right culture. I know that word gets overused a lot, but you cannot argue with the culture that Tom Thibodeau has built over here with the New York Knicks, and Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau deserves all the credit in the world for that.
Yeah. So Michael, first I apologize because I went from expensive microphone to not working at all to using my headphones. So I apologize.
That's okay.
But one thing that when I was reading your article, first you got to give credit to Tibbs because a lot of times we could speculate, that through the last 2 seasons, like what effect has he really had on the players, and you're hearing more and more players coming out talking about how they've taken this step based off of certain things that Tibbs has done. So when it comes to iHeart, the main thing that, for me stuck out in that article is that he really has felt like he has found himself as a player here in New York. There were certain things that he grew in working with other people, but he feels like he's become the full version of himself offensively and defensively for us. So how important is that for the Knicks? Because we've seen, even in last night, in a few games back, Mitchell Robinson's defense by, leaps and bounds helps us as a team. However, iHeart has a lot of that off defensive wise, but he also changes the way we are offensively. Like you see how our offense flows different with a center like Isaiah Hartenstein. So with the fact that we've seen our team do what it's done this past year with Isaiah Hartenstein as our center for most of the season, does it really switch things up and how we would play next year if we weren't able to secure Isaiah Hartenstein back in the lineup next year? Because we've learned how to play differently with him than we did before him. So would that kind of be a step backwards if we had to relearn how to work with another center?
I certainly think you're not going to find a lot of centers with Isaiah Hartenstein's passing ability. I do remember when he was with the Clippers, executives there always talked about his passing ability, and it's been proven since out of the high post. And in the article, even Isaiah Hartenstein talked about learning from Nikola Jokic about kind of reading defenses and passing. Now, I'm not saying he's a passer of the stature of Jokic, obviously, who's probably the best center passer in the NBA, but he's certainly an adequate to definitely above average center. I think it helps certainly on dribble handoffs and whatnot because he can fake and go to the rim on his own. Also, even if you just get him the ball and you get a backdoor cut for a guy like Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, he can find those guys as well. I think it helps with spacing. So to your point, yeah, I do think it would present a little bit of a challenge if they had to bring in another center of a different skill set that's maybe not as much of a passer. I think his foul shooting helps a little bit comparatively to Mitchell Robinson down the stretch of games. You can kind of play him there. A lot of centers in the league today, you can't necessarily do that because you're worried about them getting in like a hack-a-shack mode. And I think defensively, he's fared better than maybe some thought that he would earlier in the year. And he alluded to it a little bit with Tibbs. Tibbs has had an impact on him. I do think you have to give Tibbs credit for development of Julius Randle. I would say Jaylen Brunson, and even Miles McBride. I've spoken to him pregame, and he's talked about behind the scenes. Tibbs is very encouraging and very specific on what a guy needs to do to, if he sees like a pathway for the guy to play in his rotation eventually, what they need to do. So that's one thing with him. I just think with Tibbs, obviously, on Twitter especially, I think the minutes police are always the detectives are always out, and I get it, I do, because look, the Julius Randle injury, it's towards the end of a game. There are times when you would like him to pull guys a little bit earlier, but we have seen in the NBA a lot of teams blowing big leads, and the one thing about Tibbs, I would say, is he will, I feel like, squeeze the pulp out of an orange, if that makes sense, and get the most out of any team that he has, especially in the regular season. In the playoffs, you want to see if they have the legs to get it done. But overall, I think Tibbs has been one of the better Knicks coaches in the team's history overall, if you really look at it. So that's my kind of stance on Tibbs.
Speaking of playoffs, we had our hopes kind of shattered as the Knicks fan base. We knew it was a possibility that Randall would not come back. But this was actually a question from Hector when we were talking, was with what has happened with Julius Randle and knowing that he has to have surgery,
Right.
with that announced, does that kind of change his value to GMs around the league? Like if the Knicks, because there's always rumors, unfortunately, about Julius Randle, whether the Knicks are going to keep him or trade him. If they were planning on trading him for whatever reason, is this surgery something that would change the value of him this offseason?
Oh, I think first off, the guy's been pretty much an all-star. I want to say 3 out of the last 4 years. And I think he was on his way to being an all-NBA guy. We'll see if it happens. And so I think the one thing that's been questioned about Julius is like playoff performance. You know, what would have happened this year? I think that would have weighed in. But if he can't play, it is what it is. So it's almost a bit of a trick question. I say this because for the Knicks, if you were going to make a trade for somebody that you think is better than Julius, which again, this guy's played at a pretty high level. I don't know if that's really out there, but if you were going to try, you kind of need his salary to make money work, number one, because you're not moving Brunson. And so that's a factor in it. I would say that I don't think it really does it change his value that he got the surgery. I guess in the sense that he'd be, if he would have got hurt again in the playoffs, it would have hurt it. So I guess you could say it. I don't even think I would say it helps it. I think it keeps it where it's at. But here's my thing with Julius and the Knicks overall. I don't think now it's about, well, do you trade Julius for a star? I think now the pendulum has swung in a little bit of a different direction where it's, you've got Brunson, you've got Dante, you've got OG, you've got Julius, and you've got either one of Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein starting for you. And that's yielded pretty great results when they've been able to play. They're 16-3 as of this recording with you guys, with OG Anunoby on the floor. So bigger picture, it kind of swung from years of, well, the Knicks are trying to trade for a star. What they did was they got their guy that maybe isn't a quote-unquote all-star, but he's probably the best fit for this team overall, and we've seen it with the record in OG Anunoby. That was the big swing right now.
Yeah.
That, you know, and for the Knicks, it was a heck of a move because you knew they weren't going to pay Emmanuel quickly what he wanted. As I had reported, they were offering closer to Josh Hart money, which is $18 million a year. He wanted closer to 25, ideally. That's a big gap to bridge per year.
Yeah.
And RJ Barrett was a guy that, while they liked him, Toronto certainly valued him being a Canadian, number one, but they felt that he had some untapped upside there that they could bring out. And the Knicks had always wanted OG. For the Raptors, they were starting to go in a different direction. So it worked out well. And I think, to me, if you're going to get a star now for the Knicks, like if it was, let's say, a player of Joel Embiid's caliber, yeah, sure, that's a different conversation. You know, I don't know now about Karl Anthony Towns, who was a guy that's been rumored for the Knicks for a long time. You know, previously, Minnesota wasn't necessarily trying to do that for, let's say, like Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle. Some of those guys, they didn't feel fit. So that's another part of the equation you got to look at. It takes two to tango, guys. So
yeah,
I think big picture, Julius remains with the Knicks as of now. They have a good thing going with this starting five. Continue to see what you can do with the bench and filling it out. Now you've got Miles McBride under a good contract as a depth piece. Boyan next year, even if you bring him back, I know, you know, he's had a little bit of an up and down time with the Knicks, but even if you bring him back on a 1-year deal for that $20 million, and you pick up that non-guaranteed money, so what? You can use it as a trade chip. And it's a good trade chip to have, number one. But number two, even if he's coming off the bench for a year at that money, so be it. Over the course of his career, he's a proven three-point shooter and a scorer. I do think he'll get back to that. We saw it the other night. He shot the ball well. So I think, to me, that's more the direction. And it's honestly, I think, a credit to Dante DiVincenzo playing well. I think that he's shot the ball better than even they would have hoped. And that has changed things. You don't necessarily, if you didn't want to, you don't need to get, for example, like, Donovan Mitchell or, like a Zach LaVine, who I don't think the Knicks ever really were as high on as maybe people had reported. But, that's like a thing to me now, is all those guys that had been talked about before OG Anunoby, which is the key word, the Karl Towns, the Donovan Mitchell talk. Now, are you willing to break up that core that you have that's been 16-3 with OG Anunoby for something that's unproven?
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, good points. Go ahead, Eddie. And hold on, before you go, Eddie, we got over 230 people in the building rocking with us right now with our guest, Michael Scotto. If you guys can, please smack that like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get the numbers up on this live stream. If you're watching us on Twitter, hit the like and hit the reshare. Go ahead, Eddie.
As far as Randle goes, I think you've probably seen some of the numbers of what the extension looks like. It's something like 4 years, $190 million. Do you see the Knicks doing that this summer, or do you think they're just going to wait out next year and then see how it plays out before, committing to that extension? And the same, I'm going to ask you the same. How do you feel about the Brunson extension? That would be like a 4 years, approximately $160 million. Do you think? I mean, it's a lot. The Brunson number is a lot lower than the Randle one. I just trying to think where you think the Knicks find themselves with both of those guys at the extension.
Good question.
I mean, all right, I'll start with Brunson first, if that's all right. I would say with Brunson, you certainly, if you're the Knicks, you certainly put that on the table. I don't know if he's going to take that, because I do think he can get more down the line personally, especially with the way he's played now, and moving up in the conversation, not only among point guards in the NBA, but I think overall in the NBA. This is a guy to me that I think should get some form of even MVP votes. I'm not saying he's going to win the award. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he should get some votes in that conversation. So, I mean, if Jaylen wants to take it, I certainly think it'll be there for him, but I do think he can get more. So it wouldn't shock me if he held off for a little bit. Again, this is what I would say, though. Both sides are going to want to get something done. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. I think that's ultimately going to be a question more of when than if.
Yeah, if he waits till next summer, he could get. It starts out, I think, at a $45 million per year, and it goes up incrementally, because then next year he could get the supermax, but it's not that crazy of a supermax.
Yeah, and so then after that, you asked me about Julius Randle, and I would say with Julius, the Knicks previously paid him before they had to. That's something to keep in mind. So that's number one. Number two, I don't know if he gets that full amount.
Okay.
But maybe there's a number that's worked out there. I think big picture, seeing what he does with his representation, if he stays or goes back to CAA at some point, I think that'll be interesting to monitor. I do think he would want to get something done. I just don't know if it's going to be. I'd be a little surprised if it was for that full amount that you touched on, but I think he would like to get something done if he could. And what's that happy medium? Because again, the Knicks have to, as a more pressing issue, they've got to figure out the OG Anunoby number, because certainly they want him back. They made this trade for him to keep him. Now, the team out there that I think is certainly interesting for OG, and they've been linked to Paul George as well, as the Philadelphia 76ers, because they have a boatload of cap space. I believe it's the most in the NBA. And so, if they don't bring back Tobias Harris, especially, it's even more than that. So that's their position of need, that kind of three of the ilk of Paul George and OG Anunoby. So that's something I think that is going to be in the back of the minds of in our conversation for Knicks front office. I certainly think they're aware of that and are monitoring that. But they want to get this deal done. And the question, I think, is just what's the number? Is it somewhere in the 30s because he hasn't always been able to stay healthy? Or does the team say, you know what? It's rare that a guy switches teams in free agency. We may have to overpay and offer a max. And we saw that with Fred VanVleet, for example, with the Houston Rockets. Houston overpaid him, but on a shorter term deal. So it was kind of a win-win for both sides. And, business is business. So obviously the Knicks want to keep OG, but in context of your question about Julius and Jaylen Brunson extensions, I think that domino for both starts with OG first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we want to respect your time, Michael. So we had 2 questions we had talked about. Do you have time for those? If not, we can end with one question.
Yeah, fire away. Go ahead.
Okay. So
Awesome. Thank
we
you,
had
Scotto,
talked
again.
about, for sure. Everyone's loving what you're talking about in the chat, so we truly appreciate you coming out, bro. But since you also cover the Nets a lot, recently something that struck my attention was the Knicks fan base has been talking about, okay, we need Tibbs to move up into working in the front office, and we need to let a young coach like Johnny Bryant get his time to shine.
Okay.
We saw that they
Who's saying this?
Oh, Johnny Bryant. I'm so sick of hearing about this Johnny Bryant.
Well, we all know Eddie's not saying it, Michael, just from his
Johnny
I don't-
fucking Bryant. Get the
I just
fuck
don't-
out of here with this already.
I just don't see, and I apologize for coming. I just don't see Tibbs going anywhere. But go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
Not
No,
going
I
anywhere.
agree.
No, he's not. Tibbs
I
not
agree.
going anywhere. Like
We
you
don't
said,
see him
Scotto,
going
Tibbs,
anywhere.
Tibbs is the best coach that we've had, especially over the past 24 seasons, ever since the late 90 Knicks, from that dynasty or that era of Knick basketball.
Yeah.
Tom
Yeah.
Thibodeau, come on.
And
Tibbs
And
was
with
Tibbs was
that-
front office. Tibbs had a little bit of a front office dual role with the Timberwolves, if I recall. So I don't.
Yeah.
Tibbs
So-
is a coach.
Yeah.
Like,
And with that being an obvious fact that Tibbs has had a really good season and is probably going to continue, there's those talks that Johnny Bryant has been, given permission to interview for the opening slot for the Brooklyn Nets. Does this, with all the talks of how Donovan Mitchell wanted to be in New York, and it's kind of showing that he doesn't really fit right now with where the Knicks have kind of gone. That was pre-OG Anunoby talks of him fitting the New York Knicks organization, but him still wanting to come home to New York. Do those things at all sound like they go hand in hand with his relationship with Johnny Bryant and the fact that they are super close and him wanting to come to New York? Because I speculated when we first, were talking about Donovan Mitchell, I brought it up on the show. Just because he wants to come to New York doesn't mean that Knicks fans should guarantee that means orange and blue. If he wants to come home, there's 2 teams in New York, and everyone's like, there's no way he would play in Brooklyn. But now it's starting to see a possibility. So what do you think? Do those 2 things work hand in hand at all?
I get the logical linkage between the 2, but I would also say that people thought when the Knicks got Johnny Bryant that Donovan Mitchell was coming to the Knicks. He never came here.
Exactly.
The trade never happened. So I'm not how could I say this? When Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant as players said, hey, we're going to join together, that's got a lot more validity than a guy saying, yeah, I'm coming here because of this coach.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a lot more weight to it. So I'll say this. I do think, Johnny Bryant's been a guy that is, I would say, a coach on the rise that I do think is going to get interviews and teams are going to want to know more about him. I think that's certainly fair game and certainly almost an expectation, I would say. That's fine. But I don't know if the Nets are going to go with him or not, because I say this because it would be his first time as a head coach. Given where they are and where they've talked about being that they should be better, that they think that they are going to be able to get another star in here soon to pair with Mikal Bridges. They've passed on a lot of trades for him that have been offered. And so I don't know if you give those type of expectations to a first-year coach, which is ironic because, when they've had their superstar teams on paper, like even going back to the KG era with Pierce and Darren Williams, and then now when they had the big three, they had first-time coaches then, and Jason Kidd at the time, and Steve Nash now. But I get the linkage. But here's the thing. Regardless of Johnny Bryant, the Donovan Mitchell to the Nets talk has been, because the Nets, one, are trying to get another star in there to aid Mikal Bridges and getting this team better sooner than later. Okay. And with Donovan Mitchell, look, I think a lot of this is going to depend on the playoffs. I really do, which is to be continued.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. In today's NBA, we have seen guys, even if they want to go somewhere else, secure the bag with their team at the highest value that they can, and then you look for a trade or you try to get out. Number two, for the Nets in particular, looking at their books, Ben Simmons is still on this roster next year and costs $40+ million. So unless you're trading him in a package for someone of Donovan and you get Donovan Mitchell and you're giving up all these picks, I don't see how that happens right away. It could if you give up enough picks. They do have a lot of future picks. They have the Suns picks, even though they don't have their own. So you could look at that. But bigger picture, 2025, they're going to have cap space. And that's another route that they can go. Even if Donovan, plays out next year with Cleveland and finishes out his contract, is Cleveland going to want to keep him if he doesn't do an extension? Again, to be determined. We can record another episode closer to then if you want.
Yeah.
But this is the full context of it. So with Johnny, as far as the Knicks, it's just common sense linkage between him and Donovan. But I really think big picture, the Nets and Donovan, that's been a conversation previously. And the difference with the Knicks and the Nets is the Knicks made a move that swung the pendulum the opposite way of Donovan Mitchell, whereas the Nets have not been able to swing a move that alters that conversation. He's still a guy that makes sense for them and fits that star caliber guy that they are looking to get.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah. So this is the last question that we have. My brother Jigga, he's producing behind stage. He wanted me to give you a shout out. Thank you for coming out. But since we're talking about playoffs and moving into the playoffs, it's kind of a two-part. So it looks like the way that the standings are right now, it seems like no matter how many games we win or then lose, that we seem to stay right there with Orlando. How do you feel that we fare against the Orlando Magic come the first round of the playoffs? I know half of the fan base believes it's no problem. Half the fan base is like, we don't want to play against them. I know we said if we didn't have OG back, that would be a bad, combination. But now OG is back. So Orlando in the first round. And if not Orlando, who do you think the Knicks need to avoid in the first round of the playoffs?
And before you answer, what up, Scotto? I missed you when I was in New York. I'd be damned if I missed you again. How's it going, guy?
Hey, what's up, brother? Doing well. I appreciate the shout out. I appreciate the question. First of all, I don't understand. I've gotten this from Knicks fans too, just through chatting. I don't understand why there's like this desire to like kind of avoid the Orlando Magic if you're a Knicks fan. And I say that because a lot of those guys are going into the playoffs for the first time. It'll be Paolo's first time. It'll be Franz Wagner's first time. And all I'm saying with that is sometimes, you got to go through growing pains. It's an unknown how they're going to fare. So I love Jamal Mosley as a coach. I think he certainly deserved an extension, and he's got them playing extremely well.
Yes.
If you would have said to them going into the year they were the 6th seed, they probably would have took it. They're performing better than they expected. And so when I look at the team overall, I think the Knicks can certainly match up with them with OG Anunoby healthy. And this is, of course, taking into account that Julius won't be there. I think even with Cleveland, they match up. My thought on the Knicks going into the playoffs was if they had Julius Randle healthy, I thought there was a shot that they could have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals
Definitely.
with a matchup presumably against the Boston Celtics, who I do think are going to the finals against the Denver Nuggets. That's my current prediction. But right now, I would say I don't think the Knicks should necessarily fear anybody in terms of, because they're scrappy enough where they're going to make it a fight. And I think with OG back, that's the biggest difference. So to me, that's where I'm looking. I don't, I wouldn't try to avoid anybody. I think if anything, they're going to try to get home court, get the 4 seed, because that's more important, and kind of go from there. If they face Cleveland in the 4-5 matchup, I mean, we saw what happened last year. Both teams have improved, but it'll be a heck of a storyline, especially with Donovan Mitchell and whatnot. I just don't understand why people think that the Knicks should potentially try to avoid Orlando. Regular season versus playoffs are 2 totally different things. Many years ago, the Nets were once like 3-1 against like the Miami Heat when they had the stacked team, and it didn't matter in the playoffs. So it's a whole different element. There's more pressure. Every shot, every possession matters. And sometimes for younger players, it does one of 2 things. It either gets to them, or they're so young and naive that they don't care. They play free and it doesn't matter, which you saw with Anthony Edwards. So to be determined, but I think the Knicks have enough. They have enough, obviously losing Julius hurts, but they have enough to patch it up with Boyan shooting, Precious Achiuwa's rebounding, and depth that way. In my opinion, where they can at least, I think they could still try and get past the first round. Like
and the funny thing, Scotto, is I'm on that side of the fan base where I'm not scared of anybody that we play.
Same.
Right? I mean, we show the grit that we have. This team shows that they fight night in, night out. But everybody was laughing at me, Scotto, when I was sitting there. I said, "Listen, you give me OG and a Julius, or an OG and a Mitch combo. As long as OG and one of those 2 comes back, we can still have that crazy." Dope run in the playoffs that I hope.
To your point, it's interesting that a guy in OG who he's not an all-star, but he's become arguably as important, if not more, than the all-NBA guy and the 3 out of 4 all-star appearance guy and Julius Randle. It's because of what he does. He's one of those few 3-and-D wings that actually plays defense in a league that truthfully does not. I'm sorry. It doesn't. And he can guard 1 through 4 extremely well, and he takes pride in it. And I think his corner 3-point shooting and his ability to score has been a little underrated, to be honest. I'm just curious if his elbow injury is going to make him shoot less, but if his defense is there, they'll certainly take it.
And to the fan base's credit, I think a lot of those talks were happening when there was still the question mark of both Julius and OG. Because if you look at the height deficiency and the strength in a big guy to guard the Bancheros and the Wagners and stuff like that. But we did say, I don't know how Eddie's still feeling, but we did say, if OG or Randall came back and Mitch came back even, 60% of what he was, that we would be able to take on anybody. The biggest hurdle would obviously still be the Celtics because they're playing out of their mind this year. But now that OG is back and he is playing at the caliber that he is playing, yes, his shot is still not fully there yet, but we saw how big of a contribution he was defensively against the Bucks yesterday. In that first half, the Bucks were starting to cook us. And then you saw OG and Mitch and Deuce McBride step up their defense, and it was a game changer. And so having OG truly makes it a differential when we're playing teams that have length, and so having him back, I don't think that, and your point is great, the lack of actual veteran leadership. I said that in the beginning of the season, that if Orlando gets an actual vet who has playoff experience, they could be a dangerous team, if they had some actual experience in the playoffs. But like you said, they don't, and that's kind of their kryptonite. So
Well, I want to real quick, Scotto, thank you so much, bro, for making time with us this morning. I feel like every time we try to connect with you, we miss you literally by minutes. So really appreciate you taking time this morning. To all 300 plus that have been rocking with us all morning, drop the fire emoji in the chat for our guy, Michael Scotto. Go give him a follow. Scotto, we got to get you back for the playoffs, bro. We got to figure it out.
Yes.
You got it, guys. My pleasure joining you guys. I told you I would. And I know Tony was on Spaces trying to help make it happen. He was like,
Thank
you, Tony.
Shout out to them too.
Shout out D. Shout out Tone.
Tony will be there next time. Don't worry. We'll see you. We'll get Tony.
Appreciate you, Scott. Thank you so much.
You got it, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. Take care.
Appreciate you, Scotto.
That's how you kick off a Knicks morning, Brew. First of all, listen, my OCD this whole time, Heck. Right? I was like, why is Heck over here? Why is Phil over here? Why is Eddie over here?
I didn't do it. You did it. I didn't do it. That wasn't me that did it.
Because I wasn't backstage when the show started. So everybody's cameras. I was like, oh my God. Yo, the chat has been blowing up.
Shout out to the chat. One of the best chats that's out there on YouTube. Let's do a little bit of the roll call before
you do that. Shout out to New York Originals. 5 coffees this morning. Love you guys for your dedication to the platform. Go New York. Thank you so much. For those of you in the chat that don't know, you can buy us a coffee to help support the network. Keep the content coming to you guys.
Help me we do this. Support me keeping these fly ass jackets because I'm trying to shit on Eddie every time I'm
with the $1.99. D Eagles playoff W's. We got plenty of it. Tell them AA. Guys, I guess now that Scotto's gone, let's do an updated roll call and then we still got a lot of shit to talk about.
We still do. You know, normally I start my day off by stealing something from Phil's closet, but I've been in Eddie's closet because Phil, he hasn't been answering our phone calls lately. But shout out to my guy On Dios NYK in the building. AA with the 199. Happy to see the prophet Phil here. AA says D equals playoffs. Yes, we got plenty of it. Salute to you, AA. My guy Nick Yak is in the building. Nick Yak said Mitch played 11 minutes against the Bulls and Precious played 18 minutes at center. It is the difference. Corey Lee is in the building. Shout out to my guy Corey Lee. Dream Shake is in the building. Travel Vibes is in the building. And I just want to say I appreciate Michael Scotto because those words was like an angel blessing my earlobes because over the past 2 weeks, I just kept hearing Eddie say, I don't want to meet up with the Magic. The Magic are going to fuck us up. The Magic are going to dog walk us. And now we are sitting here now.
Even the chat, Eddie. I hope the Bucks win restores your confidence, Eddie. Let's go. Someone bought a coffee, whoever it was. Thank you for that.
It does not. It does not. Because as much as you guys want to talk, at the end of the day, the Knicks don't have a true second option. Without Randle, there's no true second option on this team. And you guys can tell me all you want about OG Anunoby and his fucking defense and Dante DiVincenzo, but they don't have a two.
No, so you know what?
Okay, hold up.
But we do have a Jaylen Brunson. We have a Jaylen Brunson.
Yo, all right. This is the frustrating part. Okay, because I understand the speculations and all that stuff, and I'm gonna move this expensive mic that's not doing anything for me. Yes, I understand. I understand that, like, we don't have technically this second option, but you look at you. Pipe down, Chachi. Hold on. You look at last night, the Bucks don't just have a second option. They have a second and a third option. They have both Dame and they have both Chris Middleton. And guess what? Having that second and that third option did them absolutely no good because they did not have a player that could stop our scoring and Jaylen Brunson. And even though they had all those scorers, our defense kept them on lockdown. So, yes, I understand that. But at the end of the day, we have players that are willing to fight, and we have players that are willing to go that extra mile. And, yes, we don't have technically that second option, but we spread it all across all of our guys, and it worked. It works out well when all of our guys actually contribute, and we're not just looking for a second option to bail us out. Because sometimes the second option does not bail us out, just like the Bucks' second option did not bail them out last night. And that quote that Jigga pulled up, I love it because not only is that whole rumor of Jaylen Brunson not being a 1A being debunked by like us watching it, but it's being
Facts.
debunked by the actual players that they consider a 1A or 1B option. It is those players that are saying this guy's one of the best guys in the league. So he is doing things that even like we could not expect him to do, pulling out that 40-plus burger last night, yet our team all stepped up around him. And that's the key, is having a team from top to bottom that contributes.
But the Bucks are a team that's in a free fall. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They've been absolute garbage. So again, great win. I'm not taking anything away from the win. Great win, especially when you shoot 75% in the third quarter. And then you have guys like Dante that were excellent down the stretch. But again, I think the Bucks are a team that's in a free fall. I think the Magic are going to probably end up in that 2 seed because the Magic has 2 games against them. So I think they'll eventually – we might end up with the Bucks in that 4-5. I could see that happening. So I could see us playing the Bucks in a 7-game series. I would not be surprised.
Go ahead.
First, Duggar, real quick, $3 super chat, keeping the lights on. If Mitch and OG is healthy, we can beat anybody. Say that shit with your $3.
Say it again, Paris.
Lorenzo with the $10 super chat. Thanks for the show, fellas. Great platform as always. Oh, Renzo, thanks, bro. Appreciate you, Enzo.
Paris Duggar again with a $2 super chat. Paris Duggar said our second option on offense is our defense. And that is straight facts, no facts machine. Right?
Yo, real
there.
quick,
Is that facts?
I want to give.
Is that facts?
I know we said it real quick, but I want to give a shout out to both Tony
facts.
and Beige because they are the ones that helped get that connect with Scotto to have that great thing. And I want to give a shout out because there's certain people in our chat that are not just chat, like they are actual like family, like the way that they show support. Every single morning, I wake up to a message from Dios, just encouraging me for my day, blessings on my day. That guy is like one of the most sincere dudes that I've met in this community. Him, Double A, they're always reaching out, So shout out to the chat for being more than just viewers or whatever people want to see it as, for being actual people that are part of our day to day. So let's go back to roasting Eddie.
Oh, okay. Carry on.
I just I can't even get my thought out of my head.
It was great. Carry on. I heard KP right there when he said it.
Because I was just gonna double down. I just wanted to piggyback. Shout out because on Dios NYK, I was gonna try to make a joke and says every morning he sends me a message to not let Eddie on the screen, but I just can't be serious. But no, on Dios, he sends messages every morning. He is a great human being. I know he was having some fun with our guy Eddie. Just to let everybody know out there, Eddie is my brother from another mother. It's all jokes, love. At the end of the day, we may be cracking jokes and stuff like that, but it's all love when it comes down to it. CT Pittman said this chat is the most lit. Absolutely. Go ahead, Ed.
I know that I'm right about Orlando because last night I spoke to Smitty, and Smitty was on the Spaces, and Smitty said they are one of the most dangerous teams out of everybody. Smitty's like, that's the last team. So once I heard that, I know I'm good. Smitty gave me the okay. I know I'm good. I know I'm right about the Orlando Magic. So
the thing is, the Magic are not a bad team at all. The Magic are a very good team, and I think one of their strengths is also their weakness. Their strength is that they're young, they're energetic, they're able to like play a top to bottom game of basketball. But their obvious flaws are their experience. So we have to.
What was our experience last year? We had no experience, and we still won around.
No, we did have experience because hold on, wait 1 second, Eddie, hold on 1 second. Do you not remember Tom Thibodeau, his first year bringing us to the playoffs?
Obviously, I know the COVID season.
The only person that was different was Jaylen Brunson. We still had RJ Barrett. We still had IQ. We still had Julius Randle. We still had Mitchell Robinson.
Julius Randle was terrible.
But wasn't it experience?
It was experience. I don't think.
And now look at those players that you mentioned. They're not on the team. We got somebody in OG Anunoby who's won a championship on our team, and that's a massive upgrade over IQ and RJ, especially with what
he was on the bench that year. Let's keep it a buck. He was on the bench.
Hold on. It still is. What was the word he used, Phil? Experience.
Experience. That's the thing, Eddie. You can't say it's not experience. Experience, by definition, is that they have encountered something. Our team, regardless of what you think of it, they had previously encountered experience in the playoffs. We are going into it with experience. Unfortunately, regardless of how good the Magic is, you can't debate that they're a good team. You can debate that they're experienced in the playoffs. Has Paolo Banchero done anything in the playoffs? No. Has Cole Anthony done anything in the playoffs? No. Have the Wagner
brothers? But that's not just the reason they could win. Experience doesn't mean shit sometimes.
You're right, but then you can't also say that the playoffs are a different game, which I've heard you say a million times.
I said that our team last year was a completely different team than that one.
I know, but we've talked about it many times in the season where you're like, whatever, that's regular season. The playoffs are a different kind of basketball. These guys have not experienced that different kind of basketball. They haven't. That's not a shade at them. That's just an honest truth. Like, I do not think that they are going to be a walkover team. Like, some people are like, oh, we're just going to sweep them. Or
I don't think
we're going to it'll be like a 7-game series.
I don't think so at all. I think that, they will contend. I think that they are a good team. But I think that the experience of guys like Brunson and OG will be their kryptonite because they know how to, with their backs are up against the wall, they're able to still do something. These guys have not experienced that. Give that 2 or 3 years, and this team in Orlando will be deadly. I think this is an amazing season for them. But it'll be an
real quick.
Go ahead, Eddie, and then throw it over to Celso. Go ahead.
Now, one of the narratives about Orlando is, when the playoffs come, it's going to be MSG South there. And me and Phil were both at that game where it was majority Orlando fans.
Yeah, we got silence. That's for sure.
Yeah, let's be honest.
And I agree with that narrative. I agree with that narrative. Don't agree with that narrative. I think if people think that we're going to win because of home court advantage in both places, that's not true. But I do believe that it's their inexperience that if they do win, it would be that they pulled off an upset. Like, I really do believe that.
Let's be honest. The Trail of Trash Orlando Magic fans, they don't have the money to buy tickets for the playoffs. Go ahead, Celso.
Well, I want to say that person that brought us the one coffee, that was Double A. So shout out to Double A.
Shout out to Double A.
Chats, but he's also buying us coffees. Thank you so much.
Double A. Thank you for that. Thank you, Double A.
I'll be honest, guys. When I was making graphics last night, I had fun when I saw this one. So I had to shout out our boys, the Knick of Time, because Knicks fans who want the Knicks to lose so their opinion can be right, and they had the goofy graphic. So I had to back them up. How can there still be people out there that want to see this team lose? I don't understand. For a better position, for a better team to face against, we've said it a million times, and I get it, Eddie, the Magic and the Heat and whatever.
No, there's certain teams I'd rather face than others. It's that simple. Yeah. But I'd rather avoid certain teams, and I'd rather get certain teams. It's that simple. It's not some fucking thing where I'm saying, Bob, we can't win. I just rather avoid certain teams the first round because I want the fucking Knicks to go as far as possible.
Yeah, that's why people take it the wrong way. Valentina agrees with you.
Fucking asshole.
And I agree with you too, Phil. I mean, I agree with you, Eddie. I think Phil agrees with you as well. And to that graphic that Celso just brought up, the Knicks fans wanting the team to lose are goofy. I'm not putting you in that category because I don't think you're out here rooting for the Knicks to win. I mean, rooting for the Knicks to lose just so it could fit your argument or narrative. I don't put you in that box.
It's not my fucking narrative.
But for the Knicks fans, and I think that word narrative, it gets overused. We need to retire that word. I just hate it. It's just a pet peeve of mine. But I just think the Knicks fans that are out there that are rooting for this team to lose, just so you can say, you see, I was right about Tom Thibodeau. You see, I was right about the young kids. We should have never traded RJ or IQ. What are you doing? At the end of the day, I think as fans, we want this team to win. And if you're a fan that's rooting for this team to lose, just so you can say, I told you so, just so you can say, oh, what aboutism? I just think it's corny, and I think it's played out. I'll throw it over to you, Phil. And what's your thoughts?
They're not fans. If you're rooting against it,
hold on.
you're a fan.
Double A. $1.99. FYI, Eddie, Isaiah H is a black American.
He's half.
He's bright.
He's half black. Oh, what? Oh, because somebody's half, they don't have the other half? Give me a fucking break. Stop this. It's nonsense.
Okay. All right. This is where you do Eddie Presti at this moment. We got over 350 people in the building. If you guys can, please smack that like button for your boys. And if you have Isaiah Hartenstein's phone number, send it to us so Eddie Presti could get beat down by iHeart. Go ahead, Phil.
So what I want to do is I want to give a shout out to some of the players that, I think that without their contributions, we don't really win those games, like last night, So I want to give a shout out to Mitchell Robinson for his contributions, stepping up and, being what we needed him to be yesterday, and when people hear me say that I want Mitchell Robinson to continue being off the bench, they see that as hate towards Mitchell Robinson. Like, wake up, like, listen to what I'm saying. Mitchell Robinson is able to do things like, even at not being 100% health, he is able to do things coming off of that bench that make us win games. And there's minutes that there's crossover where he is playing against the starters and he's able to make that contribution. So coming off the bench is actually a benefit for us and for Mitch at this point. And he's doing so with a pride. Like, he's not coming off like, oh, now I'm a bench player. Like, when he said, I may be better off the bench, that wasn't just gas. Like, he has proven that since he's been back. Like, he has played those minutes. And last night was huge. Shout out to Bogey. Bogey coming in these last few games and having an assertiveness to his shot, not just forcing the three, but at times faking the three, going up, seeing that's not there, pulling back, taking the three, or shooting it from the mid. He's been a great contribution. He's helping and he's playing defense. Like, that is clutch. And shout out to Deuce McBride. This is a guy who was not starting for a long freaking time. And one of the highlights from last night is him driving past his defender straight to Giannis Antetokounmpo and finishing at the rim with Giannis guarding him. And so this is a guy that we are continuing to see step up, and it's the perfect time to have these guys step up right before the playoffs. Makes us not just have to rely on our starting lineup. It frees up our starting lineup to play without that pressure of, if we don't have the greatest game, we lose. That is a great burden to be off of their shoulders. So shout out to the bench. You guys are freaking killing it. I am thankful for what I saw last night. Please, let's keep this up going into the playoffs. What are your thoughts, Heck?
I'll say it real quick, and I'll throw it over to Eddie because I know he wanted to chime in on that talking point. But for me, when it comes to Deuce McBride, I know Deuce McBride, he only had 8 points. And when you look at the box score, 8 points don't stand out to you. But he had 2 3-pointers. Every time Milwaukee tried to extend their lead to double digits and knock us out, Deuce McBride answered with an important 3 to get us back into the momentum. So there was 2 times, and one was in the first half, and the second one was in that was in that third quarter when New York Knicks were coming back. Deuce McBride is the definition of taking your opportunity and running with it. Ever since that trade, I've never seen a player in recent history, I know with the Knicks, but let alone in the NBA, that you've seen his minutes jump every month. His minutes went up in November, his minutes went up in December, and then in January and February, and the production has gone along with it. Deuce McBride, I know he's not going to get any credit when it comes to most improved player, but for the Knicks, he is my most improved player for this season. Go ahead, Eddie.
No, look, since OG's come back, the bench scoring has gone through the roof. So before OG got back, literally every game, our bench was getting outscored by 20 points, sometimes 25 points. The last 2 games, last night we only got outscored by 7, and in the Chicago game, we only got outscored by 6. So that's a good sign to me, because that's showing me not only can Deuce be productive in the starting lineup, but he could also be productive off the bench. And we're also seeing, Bogey, being able to score off the bench as well. I wouldn't mind even starting Bogey. I know that's a whole different conversation, but the fact that we're having these guys score is huge. And if we could get Precious somehow back involved, our bench could be a weapon for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right, with the right team, we could do some serious damage against if these guys all play and score.
Yeah, I like the starting unit as it is right now, and I'll send it over to Phil right after this. I like the starting unit as it is. The way that Josh Hart is being utilized, when OG Anunoby is in the lineup, Josh Hart is allowed to be Josh Hart. You seen it yesterday. He had close to another triple-double. His assists, his rebounds, his points. He's not scoring 30 points or 20-plus points per game. He's not getting you 20 rebounds, 15 assists per game, but he's giving you 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 8 points. Those are solid numbers for a guy that's just a role player. And I brought up OG Anunoby when we was having a conversation about him coming back. His shooting, yes, he was 0 for 5 from the 3-point line. But the one thing that will never change is that defense. You may need some rhythm to get your shot back, but your defense is something that's never going to go away. And we saw it last night for OG. My fault, Phil. I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, you're good. 2 quick thoughts. The first, I was just looking at the stats of last night's game, and I didn't even know that we had a guy named Mamadi Diakhatai on our team. So
when I was looking at the box score, I was wondering. I was like, who the hell is that? But I was looking at the box score this morning.
Shout out to Mamadi. I didn't know we even signed you.
Shout out to you, my guy.
Once a Nick, always a Nick, I guess. But so that was crazy to me. I'm going through the lineup and I'm like, who's this guy in the DMP? Never even heard of him. But anyway, this is the point I wanted to talk about. Charles Turner. This is key for the playoffs. The Knicks need to find a way to start games better. Like in a 7-game series where games are happening and you're traveling and your body's getting exhausted from the minutes, plus the travel on your body, plus having to be in this place and that place, you cannot come back every single game like we have these last 3. These last 3 games, we have been fighting back in the second half of the game. And that is something we have to break the rhythm of before the playoffs, because in the playoffs, in a 7-game series, you do not want to be fighting back every single night, because fighting to be in the game is exhausting as it is, but fighting back, that's an uphill battle. And anyone who spent any time working out, whether you're on a treadmill or you're on a street or you're on a course, running and then running uphill to get back to something is a way more exhausting feeling to have to get back to something. And so we need to switch that up before the playoffs come, because that's going to be taxing on us, especially on guys like Jaylen Brunson, where they feel like they have to put the game on their shoulders because we're behind by so much. That's going to wear him out. So what are your thoughts, Eddie, on fighting from behind come the playoffs?
Well, no, you don't want to ever get behind, but I will say this: the encouraging thing about last night was the fact that we had 8 steals, and we had 16 points off of those 8 steals. So that means they got a field goal almost every single time they got a steal. That's impressive. We're a slow-paced team, right? So we're not. Everybody yells and screams about Tibbs. Oh, we play too many minutes, this, that, and the other. We don't play. We're not a fast break team. We're not. When we get steals and we play great defense like last night, we were. I think we were about 12 points off of fast breaks last night. I think that was +3 to Milwaukee's 9. If we could continue to do this, the defense is the key. If we play defense and you get these easy buckets and you get steals, you're going to beat good teams. It's just a matter of staying consistent. I don't know whether it's Milwaukee was just so bad in that second half, which they were. They were bad. And then when Middleton was out, you could kind of feel the momentum twist in the Knicks' direction. You know what I'm saying? You kind of felt the game go in our direction after that. But I like what I'm seeing out of the Knicks so far. I like, from a defensive perspective, I really like it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add on real quick. When it comes to what we're seeing on the court, I'm in agreement with you, Eddie. I like what I'm seeing, especially when it comes to Tom Thibodeau. We've seen Jaylen Brunson get double team, get triple team, and Phil has been screaming. I have been screaming, and Eddie have been screaming. We have been screaming for Tom Thibodeau to switch up the offense and to get other people involved. And now we're seeing it. Isaiah Hartenstein, if you don't have a center, if you're the opposing team, and if you don't have a center that is mobile and that can stop Isaiah Hartenstein in the paint, it's going to be a bad day for you. If this is the recipe we're going to use in the postseason, when Jaylen Brunson gets double teamed and you just throw it down there to iHeart, he has the ability to pass it out to the open guy, or he has the ability to put up a floater in the paint, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to go in. It is the perfect weapon to have. Look at over the past 10 games, the amount of double-digit points games Isaiah Hartenstein has been having, and that's been because Tom Thibodeau, they've implemented, okay, when Jaylen Brunson gets double teamed, let's dish it down to iHeart, and if iHeart has a defender coming at him, there's either going to be somebody on the right wing or on the left wing that's going to be open to knock down that 3-point shot. And that right there is important. And that's what a lot of Knicks fans, we aren't talking about that. We want to criticize Tom Thibodeau for not having any in-game adjustment, not having any offensive schemes. When you finally see it, when you finally see the in-game adjustment, everybody is quiet. It's crickets. Nobody giving Tom Thibodeau his flowers, and rightfully so. He deserves criticism when we have to criticize him.
Yep.
But he definitely deserves his flowers for just that little fine tuning goes a long way.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you look at the way iHeart has been playing. You know, that's one thing that we had been saying for the longest is like, if this guy has an offensive game, we need to unlock it. We need to unlock it. Like we saw him do a little more of that with the Clippers, and now he's doing it with us. And it's a huge contribution. Like it's very huge when you have a pick and roll player who can actually be effective off the roll, you know, and it doesn't have to be just that they're dunking, which that's what the pick and roll has become, is you pretty much dunk it, you know, but with Hartenstein, he's able to get that little floater, which keeps the defender still with Jaylen Brunson. They don't have enough time to get back out to where Isaiah Hartenstein is at. And it's beautiful. And shout out to Tibbs. You know, like last night to me, I said it on someone's Twitter. I don't know who it was. I think last night was Tibbs's best coached game of the season, in my opinion.
Oh,
like we
down.
could have easily lost that game against an offensive team that at any point can turn it on. Yes, they've had some slumps, but this team can score whenever they want. You know, like they can have those kind of games where they turn it on. But Tibbs made the changes that needed to happen. Like you saw lineups last night that you don't normally see. There was one point where you saw Mitchell Robinson and he was out there with OG and McBride. Like that is straight up the NYPD in like New York Knicks basketball jerseys. Like that is the police department plan for the New York Knicks, locking up every single player that could possibly score. And that was genius of him to do. That was great of him to be able to make those changes. So shout out to Tibbs, because that to me was the best game that I've seen him coach all year. And to see that right before the playoffs gives me hope. You know, like I know we've said it before. All right, Tibbs needs to be a playoff coach. Well, we're starting to see changes that we've asked for. And once again, you can't critique something and then not give praise when that critique is actually taken and made. Like you can't do both. You can't like complain, have it done, and then find something else to complain about. You have to give the praise for what you're seeing. And that's what we're doing right now. Tibbs coached a hell of a game. And if he coaches like that in the playoffs, we're going to be other teams are in trouble for sure.
Yeah, definitely is. I want to bring this up real quick because I know Perk Celso was trying to highlight this earlier, but Big body Brunson will cut you everywhere but loose. Just ask Dane. Giannis and Middleton, how they had 43 points apiece, winged in a taste. When it comes down to it, and I'll throw it over to you, Jaylen Brunson, he needs to get more credit for what he does and how much he impacts winning. Jaylen Brunson, I'm going to say this right now. Watching the New York Knicks over the past 20 years, 24 years, there's never been a player on our team that impacts winning as much as Jaylen Brunson impacts winning. Granted, this is probably one of the best teams that I've seen the New York Knicks throw out there on the court and over the past 24 years. But you take Jaylen Brunson away from this team, we're not even competing in the playoffs. If Jaylen Brunson went down in January instead of Julius Randle, knock on wood, Will we still have the same record right now if we had to swap Julius Randle for Jaylen Brunson? I don't think so, and I don't think there's anybody in the chat that thinks that we would have the same record. So I'm happy that Jaylen Brunson is finally getting the credit that he rightfully deserves. Go ahead, Eddie. My fault.
No. Listen, you're right. You're totally right on Brunson. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's made a leap from last year. He was probably in the conversation to being maybe a top 20 player, something like that, top 15. You can make a case. But right now, at this point in time, you can make a case that Jaylen Brunson is a top 10 player in the NBA. It's a top 10 player. It's tough because you have to factor in guys like legacy guys like LeBron and KD. You know what I'm saying? Steph Curry. Obviously, those guys they're legacy guys. You know what I'm saying? So, but the way Brunson's played, I mean, he's been out of his fucking mind. Who is Jeremy for 500?
Yeah, that's a funny one, Charles. Go ahead.
Gotcha. No, but what I was saying is this guy's taking a step into, from all-star to absolute superstar. He's taken the leap, and he showed up every single fucking day. He's one of the best players in the history that we've ever had. He's probably going to end up being up there with Walt Clyde Frazier when it's all done as being the best point guard ever to put a jersey on for the New York Knicks. So, again, I can't say enough about Jaylen Brunson. And the deal he's on is incredible. So shout out to Leon Rose for that. Everybody said, he's an overpace. Guys, shut everybody up. He's been incredible. And he should be in the conversation for MVP. I know he's not going to win it, but he should be in the conversation for sure. Because without Brunson, this team's in the fucking lottery.
Yeah. He should be. He should be. Like, at the end of the day, we've talked about it before. MVP means you make a impact on your team for winning at the end of the day. Like, there's some players that, they talked about it last night, like Giannis is always going to be in the category, for years and years to come because of what he's done before. But I'm looking at what he's done now. What have you done for me lately? Like Jaylen Brunson has us where he has us with Randle being gone for 19 games at the time that it was announced that he's not going to be with us, and now the rest of the season. OG gone for however many games he has been gone, with Mitch gone for however many games Mitch has been gone, with a roster that completely changed before the deadline, like losing two guys that you've played with already in RJ and Quick, and having to learn how to replay your game with these other guys. Learning how to work with a center who had not been a starting center. Like, all these things are things that Jaylen Brunson had to do this year. And he didn't just do them and like coast by. He did it in excellence and continued to get better. You look at it, we went from, this guy gets 4 assists a game, to all of a sudden, this guy gets 40 freaking points a game and however many assists he's getting per night. Like, it's just ridiculous that now we're going, oh my goodness, like he's not just contributing in scoring, but he's contributing in everything that we would want him to contribute in. 6 rebounds, 8 assists. Like, what other guards are, doing this kind of thing, yet alone players on a team that are contributing with what looked like nothing and making beauty out of it. Like, this guy is an elite basketball player, and he's also one of those guys that walks around with humility, like a humbleness that is absolutely beautiful to watch, and accountability that we all want to see from a player that's going to be your franchise player, and someone who is able to enjoy the guys that are on his team. This is a guy that is willing to give out that praise. People are trying to say, Brunson. And he's like, yeah, but Josh Hart. Yeah, but Dante. Yeah, but McBride. Yeah, but Hartenstein. That is a freaking true leader. And I'm so thankful that the Knicks did what they did and they built around him.
I got some super chats that I want to highlight from our guy AA. AA always appreciates you. AA says Tibbs deserves coach of the year. He lost 3 starters. I listen, that's exactly what Phil just said right now. AA said Fine, Eddie, but call out the half whites. FYI,
always do.
Eddie. We love Eddie. But he's obviously a Magic fan. Shout out to our guy Double A in the chat. And shout out to one of the best communities that are out there on YouTube and just social media. We got over 370 people rocking with us, close to 400. If you guys can, please smack that like button. We are sitting on 67 likes on YouTube, and we got over 125 people in the building on YouTube. If you guys can, if you're watching us on YouTube, smack that like button. Let's get the stream to 100 likes so we can get more Knicks fans into the conversation. Eddie, I'll throw it over to you, you handsome son of a bitch. Go ahead.
Fellas, we have to do this, okay? It has to be done. All right. We have to talk about it. Listen, I'm out in the spaces at nighttime. You guys are not there. I know Phil listens, but Phil doesn't always come up. I try to get him up, but he doesn't come up. But Phil's doing his thing. But I want you guys both to rank who you want to play in the playoffs, because this is a topic that people want to hear. People want to know where you guys rank the teams you want to face. So I'll let you guys go, and I will finish with my thoughts on it. But I'd like to hear from you both. Rank each team where you'd want to face, and et cetera. Just in order.
Since Phil has been, like you said, doing his thing, quote unquote, I'll let Phil go first, and I'll go after Phil. Go ahead, bro.
Yo, here's the thing. Eddie knows that I would love to hop on these spaces, but I live in I live in a 39-foot trailer with my family traveling the country, and I have two.
Hold on, you got a fancy trailer, right? The sides pop out. You got a pool and a jacuzzi in the back. You got a satellite on top. You get direct TV. Don't you know what I mean? Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, it is what it is. But space is space. Like 39 feet. If I start popping into Eddie's 1 o'clock in the morning rants about the Knicks, like I'm sleeping on the couch for the next month. So I ain't trying to do that. Eddie's cool and all, but not that cool. But when it comes to the playoffs, honestly, like we said, I'm not necessarily like trying to avoid anybody specifically. But the three teams that I would be most inclined to want to play in the first round are, I would say, first, I know this is kind of weird for some people, but I think the Pacers, because the Pacers, to me, they have that inexperience as well. But where they are a little bit different than the Magic is that, yes, they can score a lot, but if defense punched them in the mouth, they would be unfamiliar with who punched them in the mouth because they've never seen defense in their lives. So that team, to me, I feel like with our defense, we can limit their scoring, but with their lack of defense, they can't stop our scoring. So I think that it would be one of those things where they try to outscore us, but with the defense that we have in having Mitch and OG back, they would be playing a Knicks team that they're not used to, where they would be locked down, and they wouldn't have anyone to be able to stop those 40-point Jaylen Brunson nights and those Dante DiVincenzo high-scoring games and stuff like that. So I think for me, the Pacers would be the first one that I would want to play. I think second would be the Magic. Now that we have OG back, I would play the Magic because of their inexperience. I think that it would be a harder game than against the Pacers. But I think that the Orlando Magic would be my second. The third would be the Cavaliers. And the reason I put the Cavs third is not because I'm afraid of them, but because I know that they want revenge, and so you have a guy like Donovan Mitchell who does have some experience. You do have guys that have played us previously in the playoffs. So yes, I think we're still a better team, but they also have, more experience than the other two teams, and they have something to prove, for their careers, for their city, for redeeming what happened last year. So they would be the third team that I would want to take on. I think we could still easily beat them, but I think that they would be a harder battle than the other two. So those would be 1 through 3 of who I'd want to see in the first round of the playoffs.
Okay. All right. Respect. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. Let us know who you guys want to see when it comes to that first round matchup in the playoffs. Me personally, I would rather face Indiana over the Magic because of everything that you just laid out, Phil. Indiana is not known for their defense. Orlando's known for their defense. And we all know in the postseason, defense wins championships. That's why the Pistons in 2004, they were able to win a championship. And that's why Mike D'Antoni and Steve Nash never won a championship, because they had the best offense and they just could never stop anybody in the postseason when it matters. But for me, I know it's not going to happen in the first round. It may happen in the second round if the Knicks are able to get past and make it to the second round. But a key matchup that I want the Miami Heat. I don't care what anybody says. I want revenge. One, I want revenge from last year. Two, I want revenge for Julius Randle and Jaime Hackage, or however you pronounce his name. And number three, it's the Knicks and the Heat in the playoffs. Who is going to say no to the Knicks and the Heat matching up in the postseason? To me, the Celtics, I'm not scared about this. I'm not scared of the Boston Celtics. I look at the Boston Celtics the same way people looked at the Atlanta Hawks back in 2015 and 2016. You remember when LeBron was with the Cavs in that second go around? For years, 3 years in a row, Atlanta was the number one team in the East. 60 wins, 63 wins, 58 wins. Were the number one team in the Eastern Conference, but they can never get over the hump in the postseason. They can never scratch that monkey off their back. Same way with the Toronto Raptors. Before they traded for Kawhi, the Toronto Raptors were top seed in the East every year, but they could just never make it far in the postseason. That's how I look at the Boston Celtics. Eddie, fix your face, all right?
You can't say that about Boston because they're the number one team in the NBA right now. They're
just like the Hawks were. Just like the Hawks were.
Sure.
Just like the Raptors were.
The Hawks never got to the finals. The Hawks never took the Cleveland Cavaliers to 7 games.
And in the Eastern Conference Finals, they did.
Cleveland Cavaliers would be the Miami Heat. You know what I'm saying? Last year, Boston was down 3-0. They pushed it to Game 7. They should have won that. Mm-hmm. They should have won that shit, but they didn't. But if I had to give my order of teams, it would be Cleveland. I want to face them the most because we have their number. We have their number. Donovan Mitchell's hurt. His hamstrings, he's messed up. He's not right. If you watch those games, he does not look like Donovan Mitchell. So right up the rip, Cleveland's my first choice. Second choice, I'm with you both. Indiana. Give me Indiana. My third choice is where people might say I'm nuts. My third choice is Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is the Walking Dead right now. I think they are primed for the taking. I think Doc Rivers sucks as a coach. I think he's a I think he's a fucking loser. I think he sabotaged that first coach. Okay? He was a consultant for the fucking Milwaukee Bucks. And he went out and took that guy's fucking job. And he took his job and he's been terrible at it. Like I said, they're 3-7 in their last 10. They lost 4 in a row. So give me Milwaukee right now because they are on the ropes. They are on the ropes and they are ready to get knocked out. Then the final 3 is like who I don't want to face. So I'm going to go Orlando. I'm going to go Philadelphia. I don't want any part of Philly right now. Philly's got Embiid back, which we never saw coming. Or Philadelphia went out and they made trades that nobody's talked about. Nobody's talked about them getting Buddy Hield, who's been one of the best three-pointing shooters in the NBA over the last 5 years. Okay, they got him. Nobody talks about that. They've got Kyle Lowry, a guy that wanted to come home, wants to be there. Kelly Oubre is healthy. So right now, I don't want any part of the Sixers just because they're unknown. They got Embiid back, and I don't know what to fucking expect out of them. So that's them. And the last team I want to face, and this is all for the first round, by the way, is Miami. I don't want Miami in the fucking first round because of what they could do and because of how much they've won over the last 4 or 5 years. So that would be my order of who I want to face in the first round. As far as second round, we could get into that. Celtics are not even in my mind because we're not going to face them in the first round.
Yeah. So I agree with you on the 76ers. You know, like here's the thing is I feel like Embiid.
He doesn't even want to face any.
I just listed them. See, but people are fucking. I'm misunderstood.
No.
You don't understand me. Look at it.
Oh,
Why
look
did
at
they
the celebration. Hey, there you go.
Look at
Celebration,
that.
Eddie.
I'm misunderstood because I just laid out a case for the whole fucking first round, but nobody fucking listens to what I say. So take it as you want.
Eddie,
Yeah.
I listen to you.
Shout out to StreamYard. StreamYard heard that you needed to be celebrated as well. You
There you
felt
go.
unloved, and so
I don't
StreamYard
know how to
gave
get
you,
the
gave
celebration.
you your fireworks. They didn't give you, your flowers, but they gave you your fireworks. And
Hey, congratulations. Eddie finally got his flowerworks.
I don't
one thing
want
I will say though is, like, Philly is, in my opinion, they are a team that can't be slept on. I feel like Embiid, yes, he's underperformed in the playoffs before, but
They used to
also,
say that about Jokic, Phil. They used to say the same thing about Joker. Oh, he sucks in the playoffs. What happened last year?
And the thing about him though is Embiid is coming back, and he looks good. Like, he looks like he's recovered from that injury. Joel Embiid is going to be, like, in my opinion, someone who is rested, like someone that is rested, who is an all-star caliber, MVP caliber kind of player. Like, he doesn't have the whole NBA season of exhaustion on his body, which I feel like could be a kryptonite. And he doesn't have to come back 100% because of those trades that were made. Those are very, very crucial trades that they made in the offseason to make their team better, in the thoughts of him not coming back and still wanting to contend. But now they have those trades plus having him back, which was a huge surprise for them and for the rest of the league. So I do think that they are going to be a very, difficult team to play in the playoffs. And the reason I don't want to play the Heat is not because I necessarily fear the Heat, but let's be honest. How many times have our guys gotten injured because of the Miami Heat? Like, you think of it time and time again, so many of our guys have gone down because of the culture of sloppy, physical play. Like, I don't mind physical play. It's just the physical play that they play is not actual basketball. Like, it's, you look at it, you're like, how does that happen every time Bam Adebayo is guarding somebody around the league? Things that cause our team pain. So I don't want to see someone like OG coming back from injury, trying to solidify himself, and all of a sudden we're playing a Heat team who then injures him again. So I don't want something like that. That's the reason I don't want the Heat. Not because I'm afraid of them as a team, but because I'm afraid of the way that they play dirty has caused issues for us time and time again.
Yeah.
And they just got
I gotta
Hero
agree with you
back.
with
They
that.
just got Hero back. So that's another.
You only bring him up because he's white, Eddie. Okay. Fuck
No.
that.
He's always injured in the playoffs. He's always injured.
It's the same reason why you're secret Celtic fans, because it's that little
I hate
Irish
the
guy in
fucking
you.
Celtics.
It's the fucking little Irish in you. That's what it is, Eddie.
Fuck the Celtics. I just don't want to face them in the first round. But we ain't
No, I got it.
We ain't gonna face them.
No, I get it.
But
Fellas,
the Heat.
let's get our last.
They're clicking right now. They're clicking.
Let's get our last predictions. 4 games left of the season. It's weird. There's no NBA games today. Do you guys know that? Not one NBA game.
National title.
Yeah, because of the national title game. Listen, when it comes down to it, 4 games left. I want us to get to 50 wins, but I think it's more important that our team health comes back. Our team health is more important than getting into 50 wins. So I just want health going forward. Lock in that 3rd seed or that 4th seed, whatever you have to do. 4 games left. I think we can go 4-0. Fuck it. I'm saying 4-0. What about you, Eddie?
No, we go 4-0. To solidify the 4, you have to go 3-1. So if we could go 3-1, we bump the Cavs out down to 5. That would be the fucking perfect scenario. Perfect. Okay. Because then you get Cleveland at 5. But I don't know what's going to happen with Milwaukee though. That's what I think they're fucking done. I think they're done. So we'll see. Okay.
Phil, what about you, brother?
So shout out to Swanee also in the chat. He's with Hector on that 4-0.
My guy Swanee.
So I believe that the Knicks can go 4-0, and this is why I believe it. I think 2 of the next games are against Chicago. We lost that one in Chicago on a back-to-back. I feel like that's why we lost that game, was we were on that back-to-back. We don't play them on another back-to-back, so I don't see that being an issue. I don't see the Nets being an issue. And I also don't see the Boston Celtics playing their guys against us for the whole game, if at all. They have that one spot solidified already. It's right before the playoffs. I don't think that they care to like play their guys fully against us in that game. So I think if we play the Boston Celtics and they're not playing Tatum and Porzingis and Brown a full 4 quarters or even, a half, I think that's an easy victory as well. So I could see us going 4-0 for sure because of that reason. I think that if the Celtics were still trying to play and still trying to prove, that close to the playoffs, that might be, the one that we would see slip. But I don't see them playing their guys in full honesty. So I think it could be 4-0.
Yeah, but they're still winning, though. That's the crazy thing about the Celtics. They keep winning.
They are, but that close to the playoffs, I don't see them playing those guys.
Oh, I mean, it's on Thursday.
See,
yeah,
see what I'm talking about. See
hey,
that Celtic fan.
I'm not. I don't think they're gonna do it.
Listen, when it comes down, I see a criticism online that folks have for the head coach of the Boston Celtics. He's a heavy analytic guy.
He's smart.
He's super smart. But he relies heavily on analytics. Eddie, from watching baseball, from watching the NBA, that at the end of the day, analytics has not won a championship. No. They haven't. So they're waiting for him to be the first one, and I think that's puts him with the 8 ball, like right outside the 8 ball, because there's a lot of pressure to put on someone who's trying to implement a new system that never won in the NBA. If there's anyone that could, it could be him, because you see how great he is when it comes to the schemes and how great he is when it comes to as a coach who can communicate with his players. But the critics and the criticism is he relies heavily on analytics, and I think that's something that people should put in the back of their head.
Look
but
at the
I
way
think it's
they
going to be 4-0. No, listen, the Celtics, I know I was joking around. They're a phenomenal team. Yeah. They're a team to watch out for. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference for a reason. But when it comes down to it, the postseason basketball is different than regular season basketball. But folks in the chat, fellas, my guy Phil, Eddie, for Celso being backstage. We got over 404 people in the building, 124 rocking on YouTube. So if you guys can, please smack that like button and hit that subscribe button. We are on the precipice. We are on the way to 5K subs. We are at 4,067 right now. Phil, any last words for the people before we get out of here?
No, one thing I just want to see is going into the playoffs, like, we got to be in one accord as a fan base. This is one of those things where I understand we win some games, we lose some games, it happens. But the extremes of, oh, we lost 2 in a row, this team sucks, I hate this team, and then all of a sudden we win 2 in a row, it's like, oh, the Knicks are this, like, chill out. Like, let's just ride this wave, let's enjoy it. Like, honestly, I love hearing people's takes, but I hate hearing the back and forth arguing, of like extremes, because the extremes are extremes. They're not real, like no team has gone undefeated this year. None at all. So let's stop acting like any team, especially the Knicks, should have. And that's when you would be extremely happy. This team has overcome a lot of adversity this season. Let's give them all the support that they need in the playoffs. Anyone who's a content creator, anyone who's in Spaces or on Knicks Facebook or Knicks Instagram, everyone has said these players see what we post. These players see the things that they're tagging. Yes. How about we stop being idiots and tagging them in stupidity and negativity and expecting them to just brush it off and then go play out of their mind? If we really believe that our players see this stuff, let's not tag them with stupidity. Like, let's tag them with support. Let's get behind our guys. They deserve it. They've proven time and time again that they play for us as the fan base. So let's go into these playoffs strong as a fan base and support the team that has made us have something to celebrate. Because honestly, I have not seen a New York Knicks team this amazing in a long time. And that's with the injuries. So celebrate what we got.
Yes, facts. Eddie, last words for the people in the chat.
Let's go Knicks. I'll just
There
leave
you
it at
go.
that.
And until next
I don't
time.
want to say anything that's going to just set everybody off. So I'm going to shut up because we're at the end of the show. So I
You
was
know
just
what,
going to.
Eddie? I appreciate the growth. I definitely do appreciate to go. It doesn't go unseen and it doesn't go unacknowledged. So just know we appreciate the growth. And until next time, I'm your guy Hector. That's Eddie, who has a new attitude on life. It's my guy Phil All Caps. Celso's backstage. Deuces.